We all make mistakes, and they're an essential part of learning and growing. Mistakes aren't something to be feared, but something to be recognized and utilized as information to help you understand yourself better and to improve in the future. In this episode, I'll be getting personal and sharing mistakes that I have made in my career as a person with high functioning anxiety. This is episode number 138. Welcome to Calmly Coping. My name is Tati Garcia, and I'm a licensed therapist and coach specializing in high-functioning anxiety. I help high achievers overcome anxiety, stress, and overwhelm so they can feel more calm, balanced, and confident from within. If this topic interests you, then please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever I release a new episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, so first I want to share a little bit more about my career, my professional background. So for the beginning half of my career, I worked primarily in nonprofit mental health organizations. So I was an employee. I was working either part-time or full-time. When I was in grad school, I was part-time and then transitioned into full-time. I did various internships in different places. And then I transitioned into private practice. I started out part-time while I was working my full-time job. I share more about this in the podcast episode on my high functioning anxiety story. And then I transitioned full-time into private practice as a therapist. And then after that, I started my business where I provide online coaching, courses, and a membership for individuals struggling with high functioning anxiety. So now that you have a little background about me, I want to share mistakes that I've made in the past when I was really struggling with high functioning anxiety. Now, luckily, and I shouldn't say it's luck because there were steps that I've taken to get to this point, but I have gotten to the point where high functioning anxiety is no longer holding me back, getting in the way, and interfering negatively with my life and with my career and with my personal life and with the things that I want to accomplish in life. Of course, no person is perfect. No person ever just completely gets rid of struggles completely. And so there are times when those old patterns kind of show up again. However, I'm at the point where I recognize them and I can see when they're coming up and I know what to do in order to prevent things from getting worse and in order to stop those patterns from showing up again and stop myself from getting stuck in that high functioning anxiety cycle, from going into a place of burnout and from getting into a place of significant anxiety and not setting boundaries and all of those things that go along with high functioning anxiety. And that is what I also support my clients and students in doing as well, in getting to that point where high functioning anxiety isn't holding you back and you can actually utilize your strengths as somebody who is high achieving and ambitious and who is detail oriented and really to use all of those strengths that you have to help you move forward in your life and work towards the things that you want without allowing the fears and the worries and everything else that shows up with overthinking and people pleasing to make things more difficult for you and to make it harder to be present and harder to actually fully show up authentically. And that's really what I strive to support people in doing. So I'm going to share mistakes that I have made in the hopes that maybe you can resonate with some of them, maybe you can avoid some of them if you haven't been there yet, and to show you that making these mistakes doesn't mean that you're doomed. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It is human to make mistakes. It is part of growing. And oftentimes, actually, in making mistakes, that is when we grow the most. We experience moments of discomfort and feel like, oh, I could have done that differently, or why was I doing that in the past? Those are often the moments where we kind of take a look at those things and recognize, okay, something needs to change. And that can be the catalyst to improving things for yourself in the future. So making mistakes is not a bad thing. If this is you, don't fret. There's things you can do to get out of this place. So I want to also share, before we dive into those mistakes that I've made, I made a brand new free resource for you. It is the Calm Your Mind Challenge, where I will walk you through simple steps that you can take daily to help you calm your mind so you can stop overthinking things. So this is perfect for you if you're somebody who struggles with overthinking things, being hard on yourself, putting tons of pressure on yourself, and you're looking for more ease and calm and clarity in your mind so that you can approach your days with a peaceful mind and with the focus that you need to be present for the ones you love and to accomplish the things that you want. You can download that free challenge by going to calmlycoping.com/calm. All right, so now let's dive into the mistakes. So mistake number one is worrying too much about what others thought about me. So this was especially the case in my previous job. So I would worry that because I especially used to struggle with social anxiety a lot in the past, and pretty much for as long as I could remember, up until a few years ago, it got significantly better. But I would worry about, this person is judging me negatively, or, have major imposter syndrome, and then worry that I wasn't qualified. And so I was always focused on and assuming that other people were not only judging me, but especially judging me negatively and looking at me negatively. And so that would get me in a place where I would isolate myself. And so I would avoid talking to people because I worried that I didn't know how to make small talk and they were going to judge me for that, or I wasn't interesting enough, or whatever else it was. And I think in isolating myself, then I created this kind of image where first people didn't really get to know the real me. And so that prevented them from actually making an accurate judgment of me and probably made them look at me more negatively. So I kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was creating the environment that was the opposite of what I actually wanted because I was avoiding. And it could have prevented me from building relationships and feeling comfortable and all of those things. Now, this didn't happen throughout my entire career in working in different places, but I think especially when I got my own office space and I didn't really have the opportunity to actually have conversations with people where there wasn't a particular reason. So I felt like, well, to have a conversation with somebody, I need to have a reason to. So that prevented those small conversations and those connection points from occurring. And that just kind of resulted in me isolating more. So I think that was one mistake. Another mistake is expecting perfection immediately. So because I had such high expectations for myself, especially coming out of grad school and starting out being a therapist, I expected that I should know everything, and I expected that I should be able to help the people that were coming to me, especially because I felt a lot of pressure to help them. And I had families even say to me like, "Oh, you look so young." It's kind of implying, do you know what you're doing? And so because of that, I was expecting a lot for myself in order to prove like, yeah, I'm qualified to be here. And I think that in putting that pressure on myself, I made things more challenging for myself. In some ways, it helped me to grow and to learn more. And in other ways, it also resulted in me being really hard on myself and feeling like I was failing because I wasn't learning things as quickly as I should be, when in reality, I don't think anybody could learn things as quickly as I was expecting because of those unrealistic expectations I had for myself. The next mistake was comparing myself negatively to others. And this showed up especially when I transitioned into entrepreneurship, especially when it comes to things like social media and seeing what other business owners are doing and seeing all of the things that other entrepreneurs are sharing with like their income and how much they're making, and having all of these new things that they're making and sharing, and whatever it is, it's kind of the concept of keeping up with the Joneses. So I think seeing the things other people were putting out there, especially when I was at a point in the beginning of entrepreneurship where I felt overwhelmed, like there's so many things I could be doing and I don't know what to do. So I felt pressure to do it all. I was negatively comparing myself to what I was seeing other people put out there and not recognizing that I was only seeing, and maybe I consciously knew this, but I think many times when you're comparing yourself to others, it's not happening consciously. So it may be something that's happening automatically. And so I think I was seeing all the things people were putting out there and not recognizing that I'm only seeing what they're choosing to share. I'm only seeing the highlight reel. And so I was thinking that I wasn't far enough, where I should be, or doing enough, or whatever it was, without recognizing that everybody has a different journey and a different path. And, I was just on my own path that had nothing to do with where they were and what they were doing. Another mistake that I think kind of transitions from the one I just shared is listening to others before listening to myself. So I think that this can be a natural part of the process when you're learning things. So many times you have to take the steps that you're learning from somebody else and put them into action and then apply them to your own life and see, okay, what works for me, what doesn't, whether it comes to doing things at work or in a business, or whether it comes to doing things in your personal life. However, I think that I was focusing so much on doing things step by step in the way that other people were telling me that I wasn't listening to myself and what I thought felt like the best fit for me. And so I would follow the step by step of, okay, this is what you do to launch an online course, or this is what you do to get clients. And I wasn't really tuning in with, okay, but what actually works best for me? So this is what works for you, but what is it that's going to work best for me? And I think that can be crucial in actually decreasing anxiety, because a lot of times we think of anxiety as like, I'm just assuming the worst, but sometimes anxiety can be, this doesn't feel right. And I feel like I'm putting like a square peg into a round hole. It's not a good fit. And so sometimes anxiety can come from a lack of a goodness of fit, that you're trying to do something that doesn't feel like it's the best fit for you. So one example of that is in my therapy practice. So many people talk about networking and reaching out to people and going on calls or going to networking meetings in order to build relationships with other therapists so you can get referrals and grow your practice. And so I started to do this. I started to have meetings with people and I joined a networking group, and I found that I just would feel like I didn't want to have these meetings. Like, why am I doing this? Like, I knew why I was doing it, of course, but felt like that wasn't the right fit for me and my personality. It felt inauthentic. It felt like a kind of tit for tat kind of thing, that I was doing this as a way of getting something from somebody else. And that was just my perspective and how I viewed it. And I think I had this resistance to it. And even just the idea of going to networking meetings, that is not something that I'm a fan of. It just feels awkward and uncomfortable to me. And so I think I felt pressured to do this and like, okay, this is what you should be doing to get clients, when it just didn't feel comfortable for me. And so part of that being a mistake is realizing that learning how to listen to myself is what helped me to realize that I don't necessarily have to do all of those things that other people are telling me to do. And there are other ways that you can build a business. There are other ways that you can get things done or get more clients that are more in my zone of, or, zone of genius, quote unquote, or zone of comfort. And that doesn't mean that I am not pushing myself out of my comfort zone, but it's more doing the things that I enjoy doing and that I'm excited about doing, rather than feeling like this is something I have to do. And I know that not everybody has the luxury of choosing how they do their job or the things that they get to do. And, this is just something that I learned and mistakes that I made along my journey, specifically in entrepreneurship. But this can also apply to any job, because sometimes there can be flexibility in the way that you do things or the approach that you have that can come from your unique self. And if you have a job that allows for that creativity and that originality, then awesome. And that can be something that you can cultivate, is learning how to listen to yourself and what feels right for you. So the next mistake that I made was not respecting my boundaries. And so this includes working long hours, overworking to the point of burnout. So that includes with time, that includes with clients, not setting boundaries in the way of, if somebody cancels and I kind of feel bad charging a cancellation fee, so I say, I'm not going to do it. And then not setting that expectation that my time is valuable and there are consequences. Of course, it's not being a complete jerk and being inconsiderate of others, but it's that line of recognizing that it's important to set boundaries in order to take care of myself and my needs. That was another mistake that I've made, especially not setting boundaries with time, overworking and working into all hours of the night and the weekend. And I've discovered that that's something that just does not work for me. And it's important for me to stick to certain boundaries when it comes to time. Another mistake is being too hard on myself. So I would focus more on what I lacked and what still needed to be accomplished. So, I don't have enough clients yet, or, this course launch didn't go as expected, or even when I was employed, like, I could have done better, or, I still don't know this one modality to use with clients and this approach, and I should know this. So it was more focusing on what I lacked and what I still needed to do rather than recognizing all of the progress that I've made. Because regardless of where you are, you have made progress to get here. You have grown in some way. And I was ignoring all of that progress and kind of seeing it as, all right, this is done, kind of, because I think we tend to adapt to when we get to a certain place, we adjust to it, and this is the new normal. And then we're looking at the next thing we want to accomplish and the next milestone. And that can leave you in this place of feeling like you're constantly running on this hamster wheel and never arriving to quote unquote happiness or arriving to fulfillment. And so that was another mistake that I made, where I was focused more on, all right, I still need to accomplish this, rather than recognizing all of the amazing growth and progress that I had already made and that had gotten me to the moment where I was at that point. And recognizing that where you are right now is where you probably were wishing or dreaming about being in the past. And so acknowledging that can really help to transform your mindset. Those are some mistakes that I have noticed that I made in the past when I was really in the midst of struggling with high functioning anxiety, being hard on myself, and overworking and putting all this pressure on myself. And I hope that me sharing my mistakes was helpful for you to recognize and notice maybe some of the mistakes you might be making and see how you can take steps to get out of that place or to learn from those mistakes. So your action tip is to recognize and journal. Are you making any of these mistakes? And if so, practice some self-compassion, be kind to yourself and understanding, and see if there's one small step that you can take this week to help you to learn from that mistake and to move forward rather than staying stuck in the mistake itself and being hard on yourself and playing the blame game and all of that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Which of these mistakes is tripping you up? If you're watching on YouTube, leave me a comment below. And if you are listening to the podcast, head over to my free Facebook community, Calmly Coping, by going to calmlycoping.com/group and sharing your thoughts on the episode there. So while you wait for next week's episode, I have other episodes about decreasing anxiety, adopting a healthy mindset, and managing your time and energy. So be sure to check out these episodes here. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and until next time, be calm.